Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. So, we're just 8 days into the window, but there are plenty of deals bubbling along. To go through it all with us tonight, Mark McAdam and James Savundra. We've got the top team. Here is what's coming up. Antoine Semenyo is having a medical as we speak before his proposed move to Manchester City. Darren Fletcher is in interim charge at Manchester United for now, but how will their managerial turmoil affect their transfer business? We're live to Old Trafford. There's mounting pressure and a mounting injury list for Thomas Frank to deal with at Spurs, but will that force them to do business this month?
We're working very, very, very hard to see if we can improve the squad.
And of course, we will build up to tonight's Premier League game at the Emirates. It is a blockbuster. And Arsenal will go 8 points clear at the top with a win over Liverpool. Right, let's start in Manchester, where Antoine Semenyo is currently having a Manchester City medical before a £64 million move from Bournemouth. Ben Ransom is in Manchester and has the latest. Ben.
Still very much the waiting game as we wait on Manchester City to announce confirmation of this signing. Now, what we do know is that Antoine Semenyo has been here at the training ground for most of the afternoon. He started his medical having arrived in Manchester this morning at a nearby clinic and then had the second part of his medical here at the training ground behind me. Expected to be in there for around 90 minutes or so, even though, as you can see, it's mostly in darkness now. The deal between the clubs is a fee of £62.5 million plus a potential £1.5 million of additional bonuses. That's slightly less than the £65 million release clause that expires tomorrow. The fee will be paid over 2 years, which from a Manchester City perspective is really helpful. But there is a sell-on clause as well, which Bournemouth have. And let's not forget, from the very start of this window, this move seemed inevitable. It was very quickly that fee was agreed between the two clubs. But Bournemouth were able to convince City that they would allow Semenyo to play these crucial 3 matches to start the month of January, including, of course, last night's victory, Semenyo scoring the winner in front of his home fans at the Vitality Stadium. The perfect send-off in many ways for a player who has become a real crowd favourite at Bournemouth. They've done well in the sense that this is their record sale. They've got more money in this window than they would have done, or certainly than they were offered in the summer transfer window. And of course, they've got all of Semenyo's goals up until this point. But moving forward, it feels like Semenyo is going to be a Manchester City player. We're just waiting for the confirmation. The training ground has been a hive of activity of coming and goings over the last hour or two, including a Manchester-based production company have gone in as well, potentially to film a promo video. We know how important they are to player announcements. We now wait and watch and wait for Manchester City to confirm what will be a fantastic bit of business for them at a crucial part of this Premier League season.
Thank you, Ben. Fantastic bit of business, he says. Mark, how good a signing is this?
I think it's a huge signing for Manchester City because Antoine Semenyo is the blockbuster type of winger that can get you off your feet, get you off your seat, and he can really light up that Etihad. And how many times have we seen talented players at Manchester City over the last 10 years? I think Antoine Semenyo is very much in that remit of being someone with huge potential that can really excite the fans. His progression, trajectory, and an upward turn over the course of the last few years is staggering. Andoni Iraola and the backroom team at Bournemouth have been responsible for turning him into an outstanding Premier League winger that had so many options in January. We may not have reported all the teams that were queuing up to try and sign him, but we know there was, without question, conversations being had by Liverpool, by Arsenal, by Tottenham, by Manchester City, by Manchester United, and those abroad as well, because he was one of those players that was available for what would be seen as a really good price. Manchester City have rearranged the release clause to suit them, terms over 24 months, as Ben said, and they've got an oven-ready, proven Premier League winger that can go into that side tomorrow and start playing in the Premier League. There's no transition time, there's no time to bed in and understand what the league's like or the intensity of the English top flight. He knows that. He's been doing it and he's been getting better and better and better. 10 goals, 3 assists for Bournemouth, crucial winning goal last night. Basically ends what has been an incredible 3 years at Bournemouth, where he has gone from strength to strength. On the pitch he's outstanding, off the pitch he's top class. And I think he will bring everything that Manchester City fans want down that right-hand side. Semenyo on the right, Doku on the left, Haaland through the middle. I know Manchester City have dropped points recently, but in the business end of the season, he's the type of player you'd want in your team because he will win you matches.
Right. Oven ready, he says. I've got a caveat. Nobody plays a low block against Bournemouth. Everybody plays a low block against Manchester City. Is this going to be a whole different kettle of fish for Antoine Semenyo?
It could be, but when you look at the way that Manchester City have played this year, and you've watched them more than anybody, it's slightly different from what it was before. It's not as possession-based as we have seen in recent time. I think Pep Guardiola has evolved as the Premier League has as well, and you are seeing more end-to-end games. And when you look at the goals that City have created so far this season, there have been a number through fast attacks and counter-attacks, which Antoine Semenyo is brilliant at. But also, he's double-footed, he's unpredictable, he can operate in tight areas. We saw that last night against Tottenham. We saw a goal against Chelsea last season as well, where he operated in such a tight space. He's so unpredictable because it's so difficult to block off his areas of scoring because he's equally adept at both right-footed and left-footed shots. There will be a period of adjustment. There always is for players going to any club, working under any manager. I'm going to be fascinated to see where he features under Pep Guardiola because he can play anywhere. He did play centrally for Bristol City. He did play a few times at centre forward for Bournemouth. I think it's unlikely he'll be playing in that role, potentially in the Cups when they want to give Erling Haaland a rest. But I think he offers something different from what Manchester City have right now. There are similarities to Doku in terms of that dribbling ability. But one thing he does, which is different from Doku and Semenyo, who's out for 2 months now, is he wants to directly attack the box. He's not looking to cross. He's looking to get a shot off. And I think operating in those tight areas of the pitch, especially outside the penalty area and inside the penalty area, yes, there will be a period of adjustment, but he offers something very different from what Manchester City have right now. And it was a market opportunity they didn't feel like they could turn down. I don't think... It feels like a luxury signing because of what they have right now, but it's one they wanted to get in rather than play against him this season for another club because, as Mark said, pretty much every club, top club in the Premier League, wanted to sign him. City have got their man. It's only a matter of time until it gets confirmed.
Interesting you say luxury signing, because I wanted to put that to you. They've got Doku. Why do they need him?
Well, because Antoine Semenyo predominantly has played on the right-hand side. You need strength and depth. And if you're a side like Manchester City, you'll be expected to go to the latter stages of every single competition. You'll be nudging 60 competitive matches this season. And you need strength and depth. You need players that can fill in. You look at the likes of Tottenham at the moment, struggling with regards to injuries. The one thing that has separated Arsenal this season compared to last season, they've got strength in depth. And that's something that is key. Pep Guardiola knows that, Manchester City know that. And they've now added someone who can play either side or as a false nine or play through the middle. And that will be key for the business end of the season. So I think it absolutely makes sense. It was one of those as well. I think the fact that every single big Premier League side was looking at signing him shows you that no one wanted to miss out on the party. No one didn't want to be at that table to at least have a nibble, have a discussion, see what the deal was and just work out, because it's one of those, if Antoine Semenyo goes straight into that Man City squad, scores 15 goals, 5 assists between now and the summer, every single owner will be turning around to their sporting director saying, why didn't we try and sign him? It was a no-brainer. Yeah. And then they turn around and say, well, we did. It was just, he chose Manchester City. That was the best package for him at the time. So it's one of those, you don't want to look silly by not being involved, even if you didn't win the race.
Is the same to be said then for Marc Guehi? Because we know City are interested in him.
They are. The difference with Semenyo is that represented a real market opportunity and an isolated market opportunity. In a way, you could say Marc Guehi in this window does represent one because the transfer fee that you'd need to pay will be less than what you would have done in previous years. But at the same time, Marc Guehi could be signed as a free agent in the summer. Manchester City don't want to do business in January, really, like they did last time around, where they spent more money than the rest of the Premier League combined, because that was
75 mil, I think,
which was a remarkable amount of money, but they needed to at that moment in time, they felt, because of the injuries they had. And when you look at where they're at right now at centre back and where they are in their season right now, they had Kusanov and Max Alain playing as the starting centre-backs yesterday because Diaz, Stones and Gvardiol are out injured for varying periods. Again, ideally, like Semenyo, he's a player that they'd want to sign in the summer, but that was an opportunity they took right now. For Guehi, if they bring him in now, then that could make such a big difference between this season meandering towards Champions League qualification and going out at some point in the knockout stages and potentially challenging for the title this season. They want Marc Guehi. How much do they want him? How much are they willing to pay for a player who they could sign? Everyone wants to sign him next summer for free. How much are they willing to pay to get him in now?
There's been some interesting developments actually over the course of the last few hours because John Cross and David Ornstein from The Athletic have both been reporting about Arsenal's interest in Marc Guehi, and they still retain an interest in him from the summer. We reported on Sky Sports News that Arsenal had looked at Marc Guehi. They were interested in him. He was the type of player that they potentially would like to attract to the Emirates. And there's been a little bit of noise over the last few hours about Arsenal's interest from a couple of really respected journalists that understand the world of transfers, John Cross and David Ornstein. It is a player that potentially would be a summer target for Arsenal. It reminds me a little bit of when Real Madrid put that cheeky bid in for Trent Alexander-Arnold that was rejected out of hand by Liverpool. But what it felt like at the time was Real Madrid were just saying to Trent, we want you, we still want you, we're prepared to pay for you even though we can have you for free in the summer, but just to let everyone else know, we are very much at the table for your signature. Is this Arsenal just posturing and just saying, hey Mark, when you've got that decision to make in the summer and everyone's queuing up to sign you potentially on a free transfer, we want you to know that we're at the front of the queue because we also showed an interest in January. Now, ultimately, Arsenal have two top-class centre-backs.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would Guehi
go there?
It depends.
Why would he go? What, and play in their League Cup team? Why would he go?
Possibly. Saliba in contract until 2030. Gabriel in contract until 2029. And like you rightly say, it takes something very special to disrupt that very, very solid centre-back partnership that's been so successful for Arsenal, so successful apart from getting some silverware in the cabinet.
So if Guehi's got all this choice, why go there?
Well, again, it would be about what's right for him, what feels right for him. One of the things why Liverpool were interested in him in the summer was that he has the potential to play at right back. So not only are you signing a centre-back, but you're signing a right back. We know that that may be an issue of concern for Mikel Arteta. So if you can bring someone in that can play at right back, play at centre back, possibly you could use him as a back three, as Oliver Glasner has done.
He could play holding midfield. He was so good last night. Player of the match last night.
Exactly.
So good.
He brings that versatility. So that's one of the key things about him. And again, this is much like the same as Antoine Semenyo. No one doesn't want to be at the party. Everyone wants to be a part of this because they know he's a top-class player. But ultimately, right now, will anyone make a move? And that's the big question. Will someone turn around to Steve Parish and say, we know Liverpool had agreed a deal for 35 million in the summer that didn't quite happen. Here's 25 million. We want him now. Then they've got a big decision to make. And then Marc Guehi's potentially got a big decision to make.
They could have sold him in the summer. They didn't. Why would they do it now, James?
I think it's a problem for Crystal Palace. Steve Parish has spoken about this. It's a problem for Crystal Palace to lose a player of that calibre for absolutely nothing. Clubs like Crystal Palace have huge aspirations, but at this moment in time, every club outside the top six are selling clubs. And that's why it's a real predicament that they've been in. It feels at this moment in time that as Crystal Palace, they protect their assets in terms of maintaining what they can do financially in the summer, because if they get some money from Marc Guehi in January, then it means they can go again in January, and also gives them a bigger pot to spend next summer, potentially with the new head coach there. So they need to weigh up what's more important for them. And Steve Parish spoke at the time when he retracted that accepted offer and thought, we can do something special this season at Crystal Palace. It still feels like they can do something really special as well, despite the fact results not being there, because you think of what money they could get for Marc Guehi in this window, whether it be the £35 million, say, I think that would be the best case scenario. That would be an incredible amount of money for a player with 6 months left in his contract. But if Marc Guehi stays at Crystal Palace, let's bear in mind, despite the fact they're in the bottom half of the table, they're still very close to European places, and they're in the Conference League knockout stages right now. If they win the Conference League, they can play in the Europa League. If they finish in the top 10, if they finish in the top 8, they could qualify for Europe through the league. But also, the money each time, each league position counts so much. So they'll be weighing up. Losing him for free is very disappointing. It's damaging for a club like Crystal Palace. But Marc Guehi playing a key role in Crystal Palace qualifying for Europe again, the money that comes with that, the prestige that comes with that, what that gives you in terms of signing other players in the summer to potentially replace Marc Guehi. You can understand why Crystal Palace fans want to keep him, but you can understand from a financial point of view why, if you can get £35 million potentially anywhere like that for a player with 6 months left in their contract. As a football fan, you want your players to stay. You don't care about that side of things. But Steve Parish has always been desperate to ensure that the business is there and they don't do anything to jeopardise the long-term future of the football club, which is why, as this transfer window remains open, there is still a very real possibility that Marc Guehi is to leave. But for Marc Guehi, what's the best thing for him to do? You'd suggest perhaps with the World Cup coming up, the best thing for him would be to stay at the football club. They spoke yesterday to Oliver Glasner after the match on Sky Sports Football, and here's what he said, what he thinks is going to happen when it comes to Marc Guehi.
It's exactly the same situation like in summer. I think that Marc will stay, but if Marc says, I want to leave, and the club pays massive money with 6 or 5 months left of contract, every player will leave, yeah, if you're playing for a club like Crystal Palace, because then you can't afford it. But I'm pretty sure our chairman will ask a very high price for him, and then let's see. And I don't know if Marc wants to leave.
So when it comes to Marc Guehi's future, Oliver Glasner, I think being very realistic, he doesn't think that he'll go in this window. He's not sure if Marc Guehi wants to depart in this window. But I think if there is a certain amount, I think any Crystal Palace player this window, there's interest in Adam Wharton, there's interest in Jean-Philippe Mateta. Because of the position Crystal Palace are in as a football club, you can't say players aren't for sale, because if clubs come in with a huge amount of money for these players, Crystal Palace would have to sell them. But at this moment in time, Crystal Palace are planning for life with Marc Guehi, and he'll be in line to play against Macclesfield as they begin their FA Cup defence this weekend.
Lovely job. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk Manchester United. What on earth, with all this turmoil, what's that turmoil going to do to their transfer business this month? We'll explain all that next, or rather they will. Hello again, this is the Transfer Show. Right, let's talk Manchester United and focus on yet more turmoil at the club. We can go to Manchester now and join our reporter, Dan Khan. Dan, very good evening. Right, where are they with this search for an interim head coach?
Yeah, evening, Mike. I mean, not all that much to report today, other than that talks are expected to continue this week with the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick. But I think the big development we learned today was, well, what form would those talks be? Would it be a reunion of the coaching team we saw under Solskjaer's first term at the club when he was manager, with Michael Carrick as his assistant? But what we've learned today is that is looking increasingly unlikely, because actually the club see them both as potentially their interim head coach. Michael Carrick this time not maybe as an assistant, but as a potential to be interim head coach of Manchester United. Ruud van Nistelrooy is another name that is also an option that the club could look to explore. The hierarchy of the club don't really need to have in-depth talks with him, though, because they know what he was capable of before they appointed Ruben Amorim in that gap between Erik ten Hag and the former head coach of Manchester United. So very interesting. They're very happy, though, with Darren Fletcher for now. He'll take charge ahead of the FA Cup tie at Brighton at Old Trafford on Sunday. And I have to say, they've been really pleased with how he's taken to the job so far. But for now, Mike, not all that much to report, other than Manchester United want this done ahead of the Manchester derby next weekend.
Yes, I was going to say, this can't drag on, Dan. Is it going to get sorted quickly?
Look, it's a really important appointment, though, Mike. Although it's an interim head coach appointment, and look, it might not be the one that leads them into the next few years. Who knows? But there's so much football left to play, and there are two huge games after the FA Cup tie against Manchester City, against Arsenal. And I've been at Old Trafford countless times, Mike, in the last month or so, talking about how close United have been to a potential Champions League place. They've not been able to take those opportunities, and now you look at the league table, it's been cramped so much. They're actually 3 points away from 12th as well. So they need to get this appointment right. That's why they're taking their time to get the right person in. And look, I know a lot of people might say that they're looking at nostalgia with these former Manchester United players, but they want someone who can make an immediate impact, who understands the club as well, and also understands these players, which the three names I've mentioned all tick those three boxes. So look, it's a huge appointment, and United are looking to make sure they get the right man in.
But Dan, with all this focus on the managerial situation, is that going to impact any potential transfer business this month?
Look, I think in terms of incomings, not really, Mike. I mean, they showed early in this window they were looking to explore Antoine Semenyo, so clearly funds were available for a target such as Semenyo that they had long-term interest in, so they were willing to look at that. Of course, he looks like he's going to be a Manchester City player, but they were looking at those targets, but they will not compromise their long-term strategy, and we know that is to reinforce the midfield in the summer. The likes of Elliot Anderson, Collis Believer, all players that United are interested in, but they don't want to make maybe mistakes of regimes in the past where they've compromised future windows and also the success and potential success of the squad. What I would say, just to finish off, Mike, is I think this means a lot more for the players who are currently in the squad. A change in manager, we know for a fact, and I let the guys talk about it in the studio, but I think now not just a change in manager, change of head coach, but also the formation gives a whole bunch of players, the likes of Manuel Ugarte, Kobe Mainoo, a fresh perspective on this season, and the whole squad essentially now playing with natural wingers gives the whole squad a new start to the season, and with half of it left, who knows what the squad could reach by the end.
Dan Khan, live from Manchester, thank you. I want to just pick up on what Dan said there. I'm interested in these players who have been frozen out or not got much game time under the old head coach, Ruben Amorim. What about Kobe Mainoo, Xerxes, Rashford, Sancho? Do we see them playing more, coming back to the club?
Well, I think Kobe Mainoo has been out injured for a bit of time, but he's back in the mix now. And it's fair to say, I don't think that Ruben Amorim didn't rate him, but he just didn't see him having the physical ability to play in the position that which he wanted him to play in, and he saw him as Bruno Fernandes's deputy. Well, of course, Bruno Fernandes, when he's fit, plays pretty much every minute, which meant that Kobe Mainoo played 221 Premier League minutes so far this season under Amorim, no single Premier League start. So you do think this gives him a fresh opportunity, you think, especially if United do move away from that formation they were playing under Amorim and they play more of a 4-4-2, and you think perhaps there would be more opportunities for Kobe Mainoo, and it means that his patience has paid off in a way, because you think with a new manager coming in, whether it be an interim or a full-time manager, he may get opportunities. One thing I will say, a lot of people spoke about Kobe Mainoo. When he's featured for Manchester United this season, he's not put forward a compelling case for him to play more football. He's not been in form this season, as we saw when he broke onto the scene a couple of years ago. As for Joshua Zirkzee, I'm still not sure they know quite what to do with him. Is he a striker? Is he a number 10? Either way, he's not going to be first choice at number 10 with Bruno Fernandes back fit, Mason Mount as well. And Benjamin Sesko clearly is the man they see leading the line for Manchester United. Also, I don't think they'll be letting any player leave this January unless they got significant money for them, because we've seen the injuries that United have suffered so far this season. That game against Leeds, they were missing 8 first-team players. Things have improved slightly when it comes to injuries, but for Joshua Zirkzee and Kobe Mainoo, they do definitely have opportunities now.
Real quick, Rashford, Sancho coming back?
Sancho will be out of contract in the summer, so that's probably it for him. Rashford, if he doesn't get that move to Barcelona, they don't pay that fee, then he will come back. But it feels like his time at the club is over, regardless of who the manager is. I think United fans feel like he's gone. I think mentally in his head, he feels like he's gone as well. So I'd be surprised if there was a renaissance and he comes back and plays for United again. OK, that is Manchester United. Right, we're less than an hour away from that game at the Emirates. What a game, a blockbuster game. The Premier League leaders Arsenal hosting the reigning champions Liverpool. Well, these are the latest scenes from the Emirates. Now, remember, Arsenal, with a win, will go 8 points clear at the top. They'll be 17 clear of Liverpool. They've only lost twice all season in all competitions. One of those, though, was to Liverpool in the reverse fixture. So that is the Arsenal side warming up. Liverpool, of course, only won 10 of their 20 Premier League sides. That's the Arsenal side for you, incidentally. Let's just... Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard come in for Noni Madueke and Gabriel Martinelli. Kai Havertz not in the squad, but there's been a renaissance in the form of Martin Ødegaard this season, and here he is now.
Martin, is it a night where you almost don't need words, you know, without saying anything? What a big evening, what a big moment it is in the season.
Yeah, it's a big game, you know, but every game is big in this league and every game is tough. So, but yeah, Thursday night under lights at home. So yeah, looking forward to it.
As last night's results and the potential to go 8 points clear, is that even added to what was already enormous?
I mean, we have to focus on ourselves anyways, but yeah, we know what we're playing for, and as you said, it's a big game, a big opportunity, and yeah, we're ready.
When was the last time you felt this good in terms of your own form? The last 3 games, you've affected all of them in terms of either a goal or an assist.
Yeah, I feel very good now. I was struggling, to find the rhythm beginning of the season with injuries and different things. But yeah, I feel good now and happy to help the team, to win games. So that's good.
Oh well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
That's the Liverpool side. They will be concerned. They've conceded 13 goals from set pieces and they're playing the set piece kings tonight. Only won 10 of 20 Premier League games. But as I said earlier, they won the reverse fixture 1-0 at Anfield. Let's have a look at the Liverpool side. It is very interesting because Ugo Ekitike has not made the squad. So there's no Ekitike, no Isak, no Salah, which means Cody Gakpo is going to lead the line. The only change from the last game is that Jeremy Frimpong comes in for Curtis Jones. Here's Alexis McAllister.
Well, Alexis, we know what a good side you are. You're the reigning champions. You come here unbeaten in 9. Would tonight be a good night to show your very best football?
Yeah, hopefully that's the idea. We know that we are the champions, but we come to a really difficult place against one of the best teams at the moment. So we had a few good days, some feedback, some meetings that were important to understand what we need to improve, and hopefully we can show it today.
How close do you think that best form is?
I don't know. We will see today. I think, yeah, the last results maybe they were not good because at this club you have to win every game. But yeah, I really trust my teammates. I really trust the team to do good performance today and win the game.
In what ways do Arsenal really test you? In what ways do they really challenge you? We know they're a good side.
No, I think that they've been doing the same for a long time, so they know everything and they know each other, which is the most important thing as a team. They are quite direct, they are good defensively, good set pieces, so it will be challenging in every department of the game, but we are really looking forward to this game because we know that we can come here and win this game.
Goals as they go in from the Emirates with us in the Sports Centre. Now, Arsenal flying high, but really difficult time for Spurs and Thomas Frank. So will they strengthen this month? We'll hear from Frank next. To strengthen the squad this month. He admitted, though, it's a really tough period to try to bring players in.
We're working very, very, very hard to see if we can improve the squad. Johan, Fabio, Vinay, everyone in around the club, recruitment department is doing that. January is a very, very, very difficult window. We are very important to get short-term success and long-term success. Everything is linked. So players we are bringing in, it's because we think they can improve the squad and the team.
Right, really, really difficult time for Thomas Frank at the moment. Are they going to get players in this window?
They'll certainly be hoping so. As Thomas Frank said there, they're working very, very, very hard to try and get some new faces into the football club. And it's very much needed at the moment. It feels like this is a low ebb for the squad, the team, the club, the fan base. There's a real sort of underlying frustration from the fan base. And you saw that on the pitch at the Vitality Stadium last night after the game between Mickey van der Ven and some of the fans, and there was a bit of an altercation, and it really was quite unsavoury. And I guess it just sums up the frustrations that they have. One of the reasons why Tottenham need to be active in this window, because of their injury problems at the moment. They've got some big players missing, and you can see from this list just how many key players are not available. Dejan Kulusevski not involved. Everyone was expecting him to be back within a matter of days. It turns out, off the back of Thomas Frank's presser today, it's going to be 4 weeks before he's back on the grass, not even training with the first team. Mohamed Kudus as well, not going to be available until April. And then you look at the other key players, Dominic Solanke, James Maddison, Rodrigo Bentancur, that are all out, as well as those players away at the AFCON. It really does not look good. And when you've got bad results mixed with a lack of players, it doesn't look good because the pressure is on Thomas Frank at the moment and the fan base is getting a little bit disgruntled. Now, one bit of positive news that we can bring, they are trying to sign players and they are getting closer to potentially, certainly one player, maybe two. The first player that they are getting closer to is Souza, the left back from Santos. Deal's worth between 12 and 13 million pounds for the youngster. He's not just seen as one for the future, he's one that they believe can go straight into that Spurs team now, which would be key. The Brazilian media have also been reporting that Souza wants to go to Tottenham. He wants to join a Premier League side in London, and Spurs are his destination of choice. So that is one positive thing. And the other thing that we do know here at Sky Sports News as well, they are interested in Jan Diomande from RB Leipzig. He's a winger, but he's one of those players that is on the shopping list of a number of Premier League sides. And this is the problem that Tottenham have, is that they are competing to try and find the very best elite players, and they're competing in a pool with the likes of Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal and Chelsea for the young players that are out in Europe that they believe can do a job. And Tottenham, unfortunately for them, are not going to be as attractive as Arsenal or Manchester City. We've seen with Semenyo, they tabled an offer to him. He decided he wanted to go to Manchester City. So that's the problem that Thomas Frank and Tottenham have, set in the backdrop of uncertainty over the future ownership of the club, uncertainty over Paratici, who's been linked with Fiorentina as well. And all of this cauldron is not a good place to be if you're a Spurs fan right now.
And the new board came in. There were all these bullish quotes when they got rid of Daniel Levy. Where do we stand with them now?
Yeah, in terms of a reminder of what they said and what was quoted when Daniel Levy left after 25 years, they wanted more sustained success on the pitch. It was part of the club's ambition, this restructuring of this leadership team, to set up to deliver long-term sporting success. And then in October, the Lewis family injected £100 million into the football club. And this is the first window since Daniel Levy's departed and the first chance we get to see what Tottenham are made of and what they want to do. And there's no sign so far about what this new era is going to offer Tottenham Hotspur fans. At the same time, Mark mentioned the players that are injured right now. You've got Dominic Solanke, James Maddison and Kulusevski, who haven't started a single game for Thomas Frank. So it's a case of, do you want to bring in players to replace those players when ultimately, hopefully, those players will come back and be fit. So you don't want to stockpile the squad. But decision-making and performances over the last few years means that the trust between the fan base and the club has completely eroded. It feels that the only thing can change this are results on the pitch, to give fans belief that there is something positive that's going to happen. It's incredible to think that they ended their wait for a trophy and somehow the mood feels as bad as it's ever been right now. Tottenham fans understand that it's going to take time. This is a project under Thomas Frank.
Do they understand? It doesn't look like they understand.
They understand that it's going to take time for them to get back to where they want to be, and they're willing to give it time. But at the same time, there are minimum expectations that need to be hit on the pitch. And right now, there aren't signs that Thomas Frank is going to lead them to that. He's a brilliant manager, but so far, there's no signs that they are making progress. There's no signs that there is direction, that they're going to get to that place. And I think fans are willing to be patient as long as they see some signs that this project is worth investing in, it's worth persevering with, it's worth going through bad moments and bad results for. And that is why things are so bleak right now. And there's no signs they're going to do anything in January which is going to revitalise their season. And you just wonder what Thomas Frank can do with what he's got right now. You just wonder where things are going, I think.
Do you think they're regretting selling Brennan Johnson to Palace?
I think from a business point of view, it represented a good move for Tottenham. £35 million. They made a slight loss on the player. And they understand the importance of selling well. You can't just stockpile players. That was really good money for a player who clearly Thomas Frank didn't rate as a first-team player because he started 6 Premier League matches under Thomas Frank. At the same time, he was their top scorer last season. He scored the most important goal in the last 17 years for the football club. He's a constant goal threat. He can play on both sides of the pitch. His record is brilliant when it comes to goals and assists. I know he divided the Spurs fan base, but at the same time, Mohamed Kudus is out injured right now. He'd be a shoo-in starter for Spurs. So from a business point of view, you can understand it. But from the other side, what I can't understand is they've made themselves weaker. They've not had a player that's been ready to come into the door and replace Brennan Johnson. So right now, they'll probably will be regretting it. But I do think we need to caveat that with £35 million is really good business for a player that the current first-team manager didn't necessarily see a major role for in the team.
Are they going to sell again? Are they going to get rid of Dragushin?
Well, he's on the radar of a number of clubs, particularly in Italy. Our colleagues Sky in Italy have been reporting that Roma have him on their list. And guess what? He's at the top of the shopping list. He is their number one centre-back target in this January transfer window. He's only made the one appearance so far this season at the back end of December for Tottenham. But right now, losing players is absolutely something they cannot do based on their current injury problems. They need to focus on bringing players in. But yeah, that's a little line from Sky in Italy there that they are very much expecting Roma to try and pursue Dragushin in this window.
OK, well, Mark mentioned Souza earlier and the fact that Spurs are after him. Well, we spoke to the South American football expert Tim Vickery and he told us a bit more about the teenager.
He's very, very impressive. And he's only 19, left back, physically strong, great footballer, versatile, defends well, attacks well, can go on the outside, can cut in on the inside as well. He's had a really difficult debut season because playing for Santos in a relegation struggle, they only just avoided relegation in the last few days. And that's tough, you know, because Santos, on the one hand, you've got the tradition of Pelé and the greatest club side in the world for a while. On the other, you've got a club representing a relatively small Brazilian city that's finding it very hard to compete these days. And so that the fans are so demanding. So for him to have come through a debut season fighting against relegation, doing very, very well indeed, that speaks volumes for him. And he is already on the radar of Carlo Ancelotti for the Brazil team.
Keep an eye on that. I gather you've got a line about Celtic and a possible return.
This would be fascinating. Kyogo Furuhashi had a brilliant 3.5 years at Celtic, and we understand they've made a loan inquiry to Birmingham about a potential return of Kyogo. It's understood Birmingham are currently considering the move and the clubs remain in talks. He's seen as a valuable member of the Championship club squad, but he's not scored in 23 league appearances so far. Things have not worked out. Things certainly worked out when he was at Celtic. 3.5 years, 165 appearances, 8 trophies. He was seen as the best player at the club since Henrik Larsson. And looking at the club right now, they are in an absolute state. It would bring such a feel-good factor back to Celtic Park if they could bring Kyogo back, even if he's not the player he perhaps was a year and a half ago. But this is certainly one to keep an eye on. Celtic making a loan inquiry to bring Kyogo back to the football club. It would be a brilliant signing if they can make it work.
Yeah, that is interesting. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's not long till kick-off between Arsenal and Liverpool. We'll hear from both managers next. And the boys will take us through the lines from each and every one of the 20 Premier League clubs. That's next on The Transfer Show.
Hi there, welcome back to The Transfer Show. It's time now to go around the clubs. Mark, where do you want to start this evening?
God, you did that with a lot of energy, didn't you? I tell you what, because he's on the screen, let's start with Arsenal, who play tonight, of course. Mikel Arteta has praised the strength of the squad and the attitude of the players, despite some of them not getting game time, the ones that they were hoping to play as much football as they were looking to. Arsenal, one of those sides that have also been reportedly showing an interest in Marc Guehi in this window.
Aston Villa have agreed to sign 16-year-old Brian Maggio from Ligue 1 side Metz. He will undergo a medical ahead of a 5-year deal.
Antonio Raiola says winger Antoine Semenyo is a player that cannot be replaced, but says the club is working hard to try and bring in new signings over the course of the window.
Keith Andrews says the club will be under no pressure to sell Brentford forward Igor Thiago this summer after the Brazilian scored an incredible 16th league goal last night.
Yes, amazing. Brighton are quietly assessing their squad in this window and not expecting any offers for any of their big stars.
Burnley forward Luca Colaioccio is expected to be recalled from his loan spell at Espanyol to allow him to join Paris FC until the end of the season.
Liam Rosenior has taken charge of Chelsea for the first time today as he assesses his current squad before the January transfer deadline.
Oliver Glasner, he says he expects club captain Marc Guehi to stay at the club despite only having 6 months left on his contract.
Everton boss David Moyes says he's expecting this to be a quiet month but hasn't ruled out not making any signings.
Interesting one this. Ipswich have approached Fulham over a deal for midfielder Tom Cairney. The 34-year-old is out of contract at the end of the season.
Daniel Farke has not ruled out bringing in a goalkeeper this window, but has also backed Lucas Perry to get over his recent dip in form.
Liverpool are still looking at defensive options for this window, including Marc Guehi.
Antoine Semenyo is close to completing his medical ahead of a 5.5-year deal at Manchester City.
Manchester United's managerial decision will not have an impact on their January transfer window. They'll only act in this window if a long-term target becomes available.
On to Newcastle, and they're without 4 first-team centre-backs after Fabian Schär was taken to hospital following their 4-3 victory against Leeds. Dan Burn, Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles are also out.
Done deal. Forest forward Arno Kalamiendu has joined Bundesliga side Eintracht Frankfurt on loan for the rest of the season, with the German side holding an option to make that deal permanent.
Régis Lebris revealed there are no plans for Sunderland to be active during the January transfer window after their impressive start to the season.
Tottenham Hotspur, as you've been hearing, remain in talks with Santos over a deal for left-back Souza after increasing their initial offer to around £13 million.
West Ham striker Callum Marshall has joined German club VfL Bochum on loan until the end of the season.
Wolves boss Rob Edwards wants this side to do business this month in their bid to avoid relegation. There are still clubs monitoring the likes of Jürgen Strand-Larsen and João Gomez.
10 minutes away from that blockbuster at the Emirates, the league leaders Arsenal against the champions Liverpool. Here are the managers.
You've spoken previously about there being moments in seasons, beautiful opportunities. Is this tonight one of them?
Absolutely, for the opponent that we are facing, for the stage of the season that we are in as well, and and the opportunity to win 3 points.
If it was possible, as last night and the points dropped elsewhere made it even more important?
We can only focus on what we have to do. We know the consistency that we need in this league to achieve what we want, and when you come to your house against a big opponent, you have to make it count.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, Arna, firstly, Hugo Ekitike hasn't recovered in time to be available this evening. How big a blow to be without his goals and pace again, especially when you already don't have Isak, you already don't have Salah?
You already give the answer to which answer I would have given. Missing out on players is never nice. Makes it even harder if the other option as a 9 is also not available. And indeed, pace is a big weapon to have against any opponent, but definitely also against a team that that dominates usually possession, wants to have a ball a lot, and is playing quite far off their own goalie.
So does it?
We'll leave that there. Right. That's Liverpool, Arsenal going for the title. Rangers going for the title up in Scotland. News?
Yeah, they've done really well, haven't they? 6 wins in 8 in all competitions. 2 players to put on your radar. Ter Romans from Veselu in the Belgian Pro League, and the other player, Tochi Chukwani from Sturm Graz, 22-year-old, around £4 million. But yeah, Rangers getting busy in the window.
You know it's a busy night when we're rushing to finish. Goals as they go in from the Emirates next.